In my previous video, I finished fabrication of my custom airbag system for the front suspension. Now I want to make a start on a bagged forelink for the back. Coming up. Hey, how's it, jokes? And welcome back to my forest workshop. If you don't know me, my name is Diff, as in that rear axle thing. And you've just joined me in my one-man shop, which is on a small farm near a town called Mossel Bay on the southern coast of South Africa. So I'm busy with this rat truck project. I've got a 1939 Hudson big boy cab here, and it's sitting on an Isuzu frame. So the front suspension is Isuzu. I'm going to change out the back completely, and yeah, there's already been extensive modifications to the frame, as I've shown in previous videos. I've got a 351 Cleveland V8 engine, and I'm going to couple that to a Ford C4 automatic transmission. So the first order of business is to cut this frame off right here, and the same on that side. If I want to slam this truck, I need to rebuild the frame in the back here, because the diff is probably going to be sitting around here somewhere. So I've got the chassis on jack stands. I've got the wheels in the back just clear of the ground. So I'm going to start cutting. I'm just going to cover my bags with this, just in case of some sparks. Don't want the bags to burn. And within mere minutes, he destroyed the perfectly good Isuzu frame and cut the truck in half. Not much left of the poor Isuzu now, just that little bit. Hey, but maybe I can turn this thing into a trailer one day. Well, let me get this thing out of the way so we can see what's going on here. A lot of dirt in here, that's what's going on here. Same this side, look at that. This whole frame is filled up with dirt. I mean, why do they make them with these holes here? That's a stupid idea. Just fantastic, dust everywhere, and there's enough imported soil here to grow something in, man. I mean, look at this. This is about the only time I wish I had an assistant. Then I can just say to him, just clean that up, please. Just think of the weight I'm saving here. Truck's going to be faster now. Maybe I should give this to my wife. She can grow a flower in it. After all, it's imported soil. Came all the way from the Eastern Cape. That's where I fetched the donor truck. Right, so now that I've got a clean slate here, I can park off for a while in my thinking chair and ponder things of great concern. Matters of great concern would probably be better English. So let's start by getting what's left of this truck off the jack stands so we can drop it down onto the ground. I mean, that's after all what we're trying to achieve or where we want to end up. And then we can have a look at that. Down she goes. Let's see what's going to happen. Well, I can't get my jack out. That's what's going to happen. Okay, plan B then. Who was it who said, give me a long enough lever and I'll move the earth? So let's see if this is going to work. Ha. Almost touching. And she's lying on something. I put some 3/4 inch wooden blocks here under the frame, so it's just off the ground. Let's go take a look at the side view. The front end is down as much as it will go. So I think we've got a bit of a tail dragger, except there's no tail yet. I think I'm going to stick on all the bodywork, panel work, fenders, grill shell, just so we can see how that looks and how it works out. I love it, man. I guess you can argue that you would want the front end lower. There's currently about a 2-inch gap here below the lowest part of the frame. Yeah, to get that down you would have to Z the frame. It's a lot of work. I don't feel it's worth it. I really like the idea of a tail dragger. I'm going to be running much bigger wheels in the back, so that's going to add to the whole cartoonish look. And if you want to, and I might even do it down the line, increase the sort of visual lower look, I could add a bumper here that sits a little bit lower. We'll see how that works out. But I'm happy. So far so good. Oh, and let me just add, remember, if you lift the back, your rotational point is where the axle is. So this end will drop down a little bit more. So that's also something to keep in mind. So in this area the frame is still visible, but I still need to fabricate a running board. So that'll cover all that up. And if you just look at that line coming off the fender, the running board's going to be sitting right here somewhere. Pretty much, I guess, almost touching the ground when we get to the back part of it here. We'll see how it works out. I don't have running boards, so I'm going to have to make my own. And that's what it looks like now from the back. Nice and low, man. Well, enough talking and looking. I think I need to start doing something about building a tail for this thing. So I need a new diff before I can do anything. Here's my namesake, a diff. Actually, I need 2 new diffs. One for here and one to replace this one. So in one of my previous videos I did show that the original Isuzu diff, the gear ratio, not the gear ratio, the diff ratio was way too high for my application. So I need a differential with the right ratio to suit my gearbox and my engine revs and my tire size. So I called up my buddy Knowles, and then he told me about this truck standing here in his yard. That lime green thing standing in the back there. So some of my Australian friends will recognize it as a Holton HQ. Yeah, in South Africa they were branded as a Chef El Camino, and he said that he might be willing to part with the differential of this truck. So we're just going to have a look and see if it can work for me. So he's got some of his assistants going on here, just to see if I can get that differential out for us. Well, okay, it's maybe not quite new, but the ratio is right. So I made a deal with my buddy Knowles at Crazy Customs, and as you saw, we took this differential out of what was branded here as a Chevrolet El Camino. Here's exactly the same truck, but in a much better condition. And look, it's got the Chevy bow tie there in the front. So my Australian buddies would find it a bit confusing, eh? Over there by you, it's the Holden HQ. So yeah, this comes out of the Holden HQ Ute / Chevrolet El Camino. It's got a diff ratio of 3.11. It's going to work for me. Does need a little bit of a cleanup. It's quite dirty and rusty, but everything is there, so we'll make it work. Yeah, it's messy, eh? It's going to be quite a lot of work to clean this thing up. But I'm not going to stress about that now. Let's do some planning here and do some more exciting stuff. So I temporarily stole some old wheels from Knowles as well, so we can try and turn this thing into a roller. And seeing as I'm just one OG, you guys know what an OG is, right? An old guy. I will use my little jack to get the diff high enough so I can put the wheel on. Right, come now. This old OG is struggling with this stupid thing. There we go. So this style of rim was known as a Ross style out here. They were very popular back in the day. I actually like them a lot, but they're very difficult to find now. And I've actually only got this one. Knowles couldn't even give me two. So the one on the other side is just a plain old common rim. Right, my rear axle is be-wheeled. If such a word even exists. And I want to keep the wheelbase approximately the same as what the Isuzu had originally. And if I check this measurement, yes, so it's roughly in the same position as what it was on the Isuzu. I do still have the original Hudson load bin sides, which is going to sit here down the line. And I might have to just check that distance there, but I think we're close. So this is the start of it, I think. This is roughly where it's going to sit. Cool. Oh, maybe this thing should point the other way, eh? There. Nope, it's not interested. Does not want to listen to me. Well, at least it's starting to look like a truck again. But we can't have these tiny little wheels. These are only 195, I think 75, 14 inch. That's too small. So I'm planning to run, I've got an old one here, so we can see. This is a 265, 65, 17. That's the size I'm planning to run on the back. And it's the diameter is also working out very nicely with the rest of my diff ratio, transmission ratio, engine RPM scenario. So that's what we're going to be using. Yes, man, now we're starting to get the vibe. Some envisioning going on here. I took this tiny wheel off and I just put that old tire in place just to get a feel for things. I love it. Got to do the old low angle shot as well, just to keep the motivation up. And the front end shot for the record. Okay, enough babbling. If I don't start doing something about this, it will just remain a vision. So obviously the tire diameter is going to affect the height of the back axle off the ground. I mean, because I've got a bigger diameter tire on this side of the axle is higher off the ground than this side. So unfortunately, I don't have the final rims and tires that I'm going to use yet. And I'd like to have the axle set up in the correct position. So I need to make a plan so that I can have that axle sitting where it's going to be in the end. So I made up these contraptions quickly. Now I can adjust the height of the ground to any position I desire. So this part with the thread is actually one of those scaffold adjusting legs. I don't know what you call them. I found it in a junkyard. Yeah, when I walk around in those places, this kind of stuff always finds its way onto the back of my truck. So I just welded some legs on it and a little bracket in here in which the axle can rest with a piece of pipe that's sliding over my scaffold adjustment thingamajig. So the tire that I plan to use has got a diameter of 29 inches, which is about the same as 740 millimeters. So it would make sense if I take half that distance. That would need to be the distance from the floor to the center line of the back axle. I'm a little bit higher at the moment. I guess if we really want to be pernickety, you could subtract like half an inch or so for the compression of the tire when there's weight on it. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about that. So yeah, if I set this up at say 14.5 inches off of the ground, that will be the position it sits in when the truck is slammed. And all of this is assuming that the floor is actually level. So 14.5 inches off the ground on both sides. That's where my back axle is going to sit. The 4.5 position, that still needs to be fine-tuned a little bit, but it's kind of close enough for now. As far as the track width is concerned, this back axle is actually a little bit wider than the Isuzu. So that's great, because now I've got more than enough space here. My 4-link bars will be sitting somewhere around here. So there's more than enough space to make that work. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want to figure out where my frame must go. So from that point it needs to go up, and then it needs to go across the top of the axle backwards, and I need to decide at what height this needs to sit. I need to have space here for the airbag, which is going to be sitting above the axle. So I need to work all of that out. Maybe I should just draw a picture so that I can have better understanding. So my picture is not to scale, but it gives me a good idea of what's going on. If I can explain, here's Mother Earth. So the center of my axle is 15 inches off of the ground. I actually remeasured that tire a little bit more carefully. It's 30 inches in diameter. That's why I've got 15 inches here, half the diameter. The bag, maximum it can compress according to specs is 2.8 inches. So I'm working on 3 inches at the moment. And then there's my frame. Currently we are up to this point, so I need to build this section. What else? So yeah, I need to maybe add a little bit more than the half of the axle diameter, 1.5 inches, to allow for my bracket. But that's the general idea. If I were to run a smaller tire, this point will move down a little bit, which just means I will give up some of my bag travel. The usable travel on these bags, according to specs, is I think 9.7 inches, so that's quite a bit. So that's not really a problem. If I were to run a larger tire, it will effectively mean that when the bag is fully compressed, the frame will be sitting a little bit higher off the ground. So yeah, I think this gives me a good idea of what needs to happen. I can fiddle with everything a little bit, but I think I now need to make a start on building this part. So I've been sitting here in my thinking chair contemplating this business for a while. You know, about 30 years ago I was building boats and I worked with this master German shipwright, and he said something I never forgot. You know the common saying, don't just sit there, do something. And he said, sometimes it needs to be the other way around. Don't just do something, sit there first. So that's what I'm doing. And if I used, I'm looking at this, and if I use my floor as a reference, there's a good chance that it might not be exactly the right way to go about it, because if the floor is not level, which it probably isn't, it's not going to be spot on. So what I want to do now is I actually rather want to use the bottom of the frame as a reference and then work from there, and then I will know that it is indeed spot on. So let me show you what my plan is. So I jacked it up some, put it on wooden blocks, and then I clamped these aluminium extrusions to the bottom of the frame. So what I'm essentially doing is I'm extending that bottom line all the way to the back to provide a new reference. So I'm not working off the floor anymore. Everything that I do here will now be referenced to the bottom of the frame. I think this is going to work really well. So I can now measure from this point and then locate my diff or back axle accordingly and set up and build my own whole frame extension accordingly. So to get going here, I now need to find a piece of material to start with the first section here. So I've got this piece of 2x4 box section, 100 by 50 millimeters. That also found its way onto the back of my truck when I was visiting the junkyard. Man, I love that place. And I thought some CAD work would be in order, so I've just cut a piece of hardboard the same width as my box section. And I'm starting, I know it needs to go this way. Something like that maybe. So I think that can work. So yes, I think I'm going to cut this piece in half and start making this first section. That needs to go right there. Okay, lekker man, my first piece is in place. Now the next section needs to sit here, and I now need to make a call at what height, at this distance between the axle and that section. I need to now decide on that. So I obviously need the mounting bracket here for the bag, and to know how much space that's going to take up, I made a quick plywood mock-up. That's going to sit on the axle like that. I wanted to ensure that you'd have enough access here for getting in to put the bolts in. So I'm going to make this in steel and weld it onto the axle. And then the bag will bolt to that like so. And to simulate the bag under compression, I made this contraption. That represents the bag compressed to 3 inches. I decided to make this because we're going to need it in the future. I mean, Dirk, who's busy building at Morris Rat Rod's, also going to go with airbags, and we can use it there as well. So this is then the total height that we will have when the bag is under compression, and I've now included the height required for my mounting bracket. So this section here needs to sit there. The last thing I need to do is to just verify that my axle is at the right height above my reference marker. So one more thing to check, and that is to verify that the center of my axle is sitting at 15 inches above my reference point or reference line. Well, that's it, I think. The center line of the axle is 15 inches above the ground. That is half the tire diameter. We've got the bag fully compressed. I've allowed for my mounting bracket. So unless I've missed something, this will be the position of the top end of the frame here. So as it stands now, we are fully slammed. Frame is lying on the ground. I also checked that this is parallel to the rest of the frame. So that's good. So this piece of hardboard that I'm mocking up with is 3 inches wide, 76 millimeter. Because, why? 2 reasons. Number one, I've run out of the 4x2 box section. So I've got some 3x2 box section, 76/50. And here's a good second reason. If we look at the original Isuzu frame, it starts wide up there where I cut it off. And then you can see it narrows. Here in this area it's already 3 inches. And then towards the back it goes to even less. It's about 2.5 inches in the back there. So who am I to argue with the Isuzu engineers? I mean, they designed this thing for a payload of 1 ton, 1,000 kilograms. So if this can work for them, it'll definitely work for me. I mean, I'm not going to be carrying any payloads. And then I'm planning to give it a curve here. I mean, I could just miter it and it'll be kind of a square or hard corner. But I mean, the rest of everything down there is all curvy-wurvy. So you might as well continue with that idea. Curve it here and even curve it down there. So I'm going to take this thing off now so I can go and figure out how to do my curvy transition. I think this is going to work. I'm going to cut all that away, but I'm going to leave this side and I'm going to leave this side so that we can bend this around. And the same here. Well, there's certainly a lot of clamp action going on here. But I think I've pretty much got it all lined up and looking pretty good. It's flush here. Flush there's a little bit up. Did you know that you can feel as fine as 0.2 millimeters with your fingers? One of the reasons I don't wear gloves, because with your fingers you can just feel if things are lined up so well. I think that's going to work out alright. Add a little PC in there, weld it up, grind it nicely, and then I think it's going to look smart. Like so. And I've got the brother done as well. Now before someone says anything about fish plates, I'm not going to run any no fish plates for a few reasons. I trust my welding, number one, but more importantly, I've got these curves, which is giving it tremendous strength. And I haven't got a straight butt weld. I mean, the butt weld, or not the butt weld, the weld is a sort of a U shape. I really think this is going to be good and strong enough. So let's go try them for size. Okay, so I've got my two frame pieces clamped into place. I've checked that this level is parallel to the frame itself. I've checked that this one is level to the one on the other side. I've got these temporary legs clamped in the back to help me hold things in place. I've measured the distance across here to make sure that it's the same as the distance across the frame up there. I've got this straight edge sitting across the back end of the frame horns, and I've made sure that it's also parallel to a level or a straight edge across the frames up there. So yeah, I think everything's looking good. And I've rechecked this whole business as well. I've got a mock-up for my bag in a compressed state. I've got a mock-up for a little bracket that's going to weld onto the side axle. I'm going to run a 30-inch tire, so the distance from this level, which is clamped to the bottom of the frame, so this is representing the ground, so the distance from here to the center line of the axle must be 15 inches. That checks. Well, I really can't think of anything else to check. So I'm going to make a start on welding this thing together, and we hope it all works out. Of course, I need to put on a bloody earth. Okay, I've got it together. So there's always this controversy when it comes to vertical welding with MIG, up versus down. Well, I prefer to go vertical up when it comes to structural welds like these, and I save the vertical down for the stuff where aesthetics is more important for me. So that's what we have so far. I've just tacked in this piece temporarily to keep these pieces apart, the right distance. I'm not sure you can call them frame horns, eh? That's what you call the ones in the front, not so? Anyway, and I've just stopped it short. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do here yet. I might come down still. I don't know, we'll see. And I would need to put in a crossbar here somewhere, probably for the shock mounts. We'll get into that. But at least now we've got something in the back here. And I still need to clean up this back axle, and I am not looking forward to that. But instead of facing the inevitable job of cleaning that rusty back axle, he chooses to make brackets instead. So this is the air mount bracket that will be sitting on top of the axle. So I'm just going to stick that together quickly. Let's just check like that. Yes. Someone still has to do something about this freaking rusty axle. Let's just double check that it fits the airbag. I don't want to have to fight with these holes once this bracket is welded in place. Perfect. And this one is going to be the upper airbag bracket, mounting bracket. It's going to sit partly under the frame with a little bit on that side. And this fellow will weld on here once we've decided where this back axle must sit in a sort of fore and aft position. I can't weld it on yet. Somebody really needs to clean this rusty thing. I have looked all over this farm and I can't find somebody anywhere. So I guess this old geezer is going to have to do it. And I better take it outside because it's going to be messy. I'm not looking forward to it. What a mess, eh? I've got grinders going, I've got wire brushes. I've got a toy sandblasting gun. But I am making progress. It's getting tired. What a freaking mission. Why am I doing this shit? What is wrong with me? I mean, really. Let me have a seat here for a while. I am finished. And my back is crying. I don't have any energy to lift that back axle. So I'm going to do the same thing as a wise man. His name is Rat Rod Bob. I'm going to take the rest of the day off with pay. I'm going to go for a shower and have a cold one. Thank you guys for spending some time with me out here in the forest. I enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, have a lekker one.